we're going to come correct about a few things, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I think because I'm a straight shooter and Bronwyn is a badass.
Okay, so forgive me for the wig, but today was wash day, so we're just gonna have to let her breathe. Shout out to Sacred Hair Care for my wig. Okay, so we are here to talk about The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Do not ask me what season we're on, but we are on episode 3. We start out the episode, I guess I'll talk a bit about episode 1 and 1 and 2, because I just jumped in here all willy-nilly. Episode 1 and 2 were fantastic. Episode 1 was just so amazing. Like, I watched it several times. That's how a premiere should be. I won't really go into the themes of it all because this video will be forever, but I enjoyed it. Episode 2 was really good as well, but it didn't top episode 1. That's all I'll say, but it was very entertaining. Episode 3. What I will say about episode 3 now that we're here, I really enjoy, because if you really watched episode 3, they're already on a trip. Yes, it's in Wisconsin or wherever the hell, but it's still giving something different than episode 1 and episode 2. Episode 1 gave something, episode 2 gave something different, episode 3 is giving something even more different. And I'm just enjoying that, and it was just different dynamics as well each episode, so I'm having a ball. Let me start off the episode with something that I think was just very interesting. Obviously, Angie highlights, that last year, obviously, there are a lot of rumors going on about her marriage, particularly with respect to her husband and his sexuality, which I, was not a fan of, and I was very much on Angie's side. And I like Angie, so I'm trying to stick beside her. Let me be careful with how I say that. But anywho, she starts the episode by acknowledging that, but also by bringing up some tea about the new friend of Britt, Heather's friend, who we don't really see much with Heather. So I don't know how she's Heather's friend, but she's here, and she's dating an Osmond, as we know, and I'm familiar with the Osmonds because of Vegas, and so if you tell me he's a big deal, he's a big deal. I'm a pop culture girly, I'll take it. So she's dating him, but Angie has some tea from her brow lady that he was in her DMs, and not only does Angie have the tea, she has the DMs, and she is showing them not only to her husband, but to America on camera. So I think that is quite interesting, and I'm going to leave that there for right now. I'm very happy to have I'm pretty happy to have Mary back. I like what she gave on episodes 1 and 2 as far as humor, and I do think that her mood is a lot lighter, and I do think that I like that she's found some comfort in the group, particularly as it pertains to friendship with Mary. I'm liking that. I don't agree with her treatment of Brittany. I think that she's taken it a lot overboard. I don't agree that Brittany did anything to her. I can acknowledge that Brittany seems a little bit airy and a little bit annoying, but if you watched my other reviews, if you've been here for a while, I'm a big cheerleader for two things can be true. So just because somebody is annoying and a little bit airy and we don't really live for them does not mean that we pick at them and just force issues with them and go below the belt with them. So I say all that to say I think that Mary is picking at Brittany, and I think that Bronwyn was joining in, but we're definitely going to get to Bronwyn, honey. But I say all that to say, now episode 3, Mary is telling us this story about how she likes Wisconsin, and I think it's Wisconsin, right? Y'all know. She's saying, her dad's from there, reminds her of her dad, and her dad lived down the street from Jeffrey Dahmer. And he, there was one week where he was smelling things walking past the house, and then that very next week, Jeffrey Dahmer was getting arrested, and he witnessed it. I thought that was interesting. Andy asked on Watch What Happens Live if people thought that story was true. I don't know if I felt like there was a debate to that. I don't know why she would make that up, but maybe I'm just impressionable. Getting ready to go on the trip, and Lisa is sharing that Jack is sick while he's on his mission. I am enjoying this season seeing Lisa be vulnerable as it pertains to Jack, obviously, because it's kind of like that thing where like your child goes off and they're growing up and you're not with them anymore, and so you're sad about it. It's nice to see that because we don't really get to see much vulnerability with Lisa and her family, so I'm enjoying that. Not the fact that Jack is sick, obviously, but you know what I mean. It was nice to see everybody comfort her, especially Mary. I'm going to be honest, I was cleaning my house as I was watching. So, and I say watching because I was more so listening as I was going around. So it sounded like Mary was comforting her, and I thought that was nice. This I didn't like. So Bronwyn, obviously, last episode, just to play catch up, obviously she most definitely 100% was reading Whitney in the car with Heather and Lisa. She most definitely was. Her tone was extremely different from what it was when she went to go talk to Whitney. To break it down for the girls who are being obtuse, she went to Whitney and acted like, oh girl, you really had a moment. Like, I was wondering if she rehearsed that. Whereas when she was with Heather and Lisa, she's like, did she rehearse that? Like, what type of thing was that? That's exactly what happened. And there's no gray area as it pertains to it. And what I want to say about Bronwyn, I can't say because it's going to be problematic. But what I will say is she's displaying some typical behavior for somebody like her. Very typical, very textbook, very, and I'm just gonna leave that there. But so yeah, I don't really care for Bronwyn in the position that she's taking, where she's acting up to her damn self, and really trying to act like she did nothing wrong. And then it kind of bothers me as well because I feel like we're fighting this fight to prove that she was being snarky as it pertains to Whitney. But then she flips the script by the end of the episode, and she's like, "Well, we're all being messy. We're all talking about each other. So were you being snarky or were you not?" She's talking to Angie. And I didn't like this either. Because if Lisa's supposed to be her friend, obviously we've noticed from episodes 1 and 2 that Lisa and Angie are not in a good place. So of all people, you're going to Angie to vent about Lisa. And you know that Angie's not going to have anything positive to contribute about Lisa. I thought that that was messy. And I'm trying to figure out, what is it with the housewives this era where they come on the show via a friend? And I'm not talking about the ones that just come on and say they're friends. I'm talking about the ones that actually have a friendship and come on the show and then they kind of like get with the group and they switch the story and they're being weird. Because I do wholeheartedly believe that Bronwyn and Angie are now perpetuating this weird narrative about Lisa and trying to make it seem like Lisa is such a villain. Lisa is a lot of things. And I definitely think that Lisa can be a little bit ridiculous. I've said this last season. I love me some Lisa Barlow, okay? And I think that's part of the appeal of Lisa is that she's a little bit ridiculous and she knows that she's ridiculous. And I feel like she speaks to that. I feel like she's been speaking to it for a very long time. And that's why she always says, "I am who I am. I am who I am. It is what it is." I think she knows that, but she's not a bad person. And she's not a mean person, in my opinion. So I think to call her a villain, wrong. Again, two things can be true. Is she ridiculous? Does she do some ridiculous things? And is it things that people probably won't connect with her and agree with her on? Sure, but she's not a bad friend and she's not a villain. So I think that Angie and Bronwyn, they both kind of go to the same school of very typical women. And they perpetuate things and they play games and they're very passive aggressive, and I don't like that. And then she goes even further to say in her confessional, she's not, because I guess the question was, are you using Lisa's words against her? Because she brings up what Lisa said in the car with her and Heather about Maylin. What was the girl's name? I can't remember the lady's name, and I'm so sorry. But you know who I'm talking about. She brings up what she says about the girl's clothing. And it's a conversation that they were all having. And Lisa just responded like, "Oh, like, yeah, I heard that she had an issue with, what was it? I heard she was having an issue with Nordstrom or something like that." Whatever. Something very light. So she brings that up, and I guess she was asked, like, "Are you using Lisa's words against her?" or something to that effect. And she's like, "I'm not using them against her, but I'm just saying, like, if she's going to call out my behavior, then I'm going to call out hers." I guess trying to say it's hypocrisy. And then she even verbatim says, like, "I'm not throwing Lisa under the bus yet." And the thing is, girl, like, you're upset that Lisa just literally said that you were being snarky as it pertains to Whitney. That's all she said, is that you were being snarky. And then you admitted towards the end of the episode that you were being snarky. So I don't understand what the issue is. So at the same time, we get this scene of Heather and Whitney having a conversation. And I must say, I really just more so enjoyed this dynamic. I think that Heather and Whitney kind of like blindly were following each other in early seasons because they do have a friendship and they do have a family relationship, and they had a common ground of hating Lisa. So, and kind of being on the outs of the group. But I like now that they've had to clock each other's tea, some more than others. And I like that there's an honesty behind the relationship. And I like that Heather can honestly say, you can love somebody and not like them. And I like that they can still have a respectful relationship and be honest with each other. That's what it's about. So I like this dynamic. I'll take it. Not a fan of Whitney, though. And sometimes not a fan of Heather. She's pretty annoying, but I'm on the side of Heather, and I have been for the last 2 seasons. Well, last season and this one thus far. But I am appreciating seeing Heather clock Bronwyn in real time, just like I was appreciating seeing Heather clock Monica in real time last season, because these are things that I'm watching and I'm like, am I tripping? Like, am I seeing this correctly? And I'm able to get Heather, who's experiencing it, live and in color, and she's saying, yeah, Bronwyn's a weirdo. So, and she said Monica was a weirdo by like episode 2, and she was right. So I think it's just like very clear that Bronwyn's a weirdo. But again, we're gonna get to that. So the girls, again, they're on the trip. They're breaking up into 2 groups. You know, this is classic housewives. Half of the girls are going on a scavenger hunt in a museum that has bobbleheads, so many different layers. At one point, I thought they were doing different events because there's so many things piled on, but fun, cool. And then the rest of the girls are going to the casino. Now, I don't know why you would pick to go to the bobblehead museum rather than go to the casino. And it's not even necessarily for the gambling, but they give free drinks while you're in there gambling. So why would I not go drink in a casino and have a good time? But you know, just to break it down to y'all, because I was kind of looking at the dynamics, but it was kind of like split. It didn't seem very like produced or like mixy or anything like that. Lisa, Britt, Heather, and Meredith are at the casino, and then Bronwyn, Mary, and Whitney, and the girl whose name I can't not remember, but it starts with an M. It's the girl with the bad fashions and the issue with Nordstrom. They go do the scavenger hunt at the museum that happens to have bobbleheads. Really not really caring about the whole museum thing, and that's just not my favorite group of women as it is. But while they're at the casino, Heather and Meredith go to the bar, and I do clock that I like seeing, just like like seeing Heather hang with Lisa and have conversation with her. I like seeing Heather hang with Meredith and have conversation with her because it doesn't seem like they really connect that much. So it's nice to see them building something. And I wasn't truly following. I just told you I was cleaning my house, but I was listening. I guess Whitney asked Meredith to bring caviar because they took a PJ, the private jet. She asked Meredith to bring caviar, and I guess that was supposed to be her olive branch to Meredith, but Meredith said, and Whitney felt like it was a snarky thing, word of the day. Whitney felt like Meredith responded snarky and was like, well, I'm bringing my own caviar. I was going to do that anyway. So you know, Heather, being the producer, brings that up to Meredith, and Meredith's like, well, that doesn't really make any sense because how are you going to ask me to bring something and that's supposed to be your olive branch to me? But while we're on that topic, you know what really doesn't make sense is the fact that Whitney is selling things from Alibaba and trying to pass them off as her own. And I'm like, oh my God. Wow, Meredith, we are back with the rumors and the nastiness again, girl. Like, one thing Meredith does not miss is an opportunity to bring up some tea. And you know what? I know that there was a big hoopla about it last season, but I'm not upset about it. Maybe I should be. And I'm not saying it's not wrong. Again, 2 things can be true. I'm going to give y'all a lesson today. 2 things can be true. It's definitely messy. It's definitely wrong morally. But I'm not upset about it. So again, as I told you, Heather is producing. And Heather's like, well, you should say something to her. And you know, as a housewife, they love to say, you know, be there for her, support her as a friend, bring it up to her as a concern. It's like, girl, they're obviously not friends. It's quite heavy beef there. It's been heavy beef there for a very long time. And Meredith's kind of like, eerie of it. And I'm wondering, like, is Meredith clocking Heather's tea that Heather's being a producer and Heather's being a mess? But Meredith, to my surprise, point for Meredith is in her confessional like, look, I don't even want to be a mess. I'm not trying to take it to her because then it's going to be a problem. I told Heather so that Heather could go tell her. I'm like, now this is what makes y'all a good cast because everybody is so damn messy. Not nasty and not going below the belt sometimes. They're just being a mess. And that just makes for good television. So I say all that to say, kudos to Heather. I've been giving kudos to Heather a lot since last season. And kudos to Meredith for clocking in. And one thing I have been saying since this season started, early on, it just felt like Meredith, because Meredith used to be like, I'm not engaging in this, and she would leave everything. I'm like, she won't be back. It just always felt like Meredith was not going to clock in, but Meredith understands what's happening now. And Meredith is just as ridiculous as everybody else on this cast. So she's leaning into it, and I'm fine with it. So at their Bucks game, we're getting some filler, not much filler, but we're getting a little filler about them being courtside, and then they go up to the suite and all that good stuff. So fine, whatever. And then we finally get into, and then we get a Mary moment. So Mary's talking about how, you know, she doesn't use public restrooms, and she uses the tampon to hold her, you know, her going to the bathroom until she gets back. Now, I'm not a woman nor a gynecologist, but I just don't. To me, that doesn't sound like it's gonna be okay. But I don't know. I could be wrong. Again, and I peeped before they even started like showing like their conversation. But I'm like, Angie's sitting back there with Bronwyn. I'm like, this is just so weird. Like it just feels like they're bonding over their hate for Lisa. That's just how I feel. It's a mess. They're both messy. And we're gonna see a little bit more of it now. So then we jump into their conversation, and while Brittany is literally on FaceTime with this young man, literally like basically sitting on their lap, they're having a conversation, and Angie's like, she's so obsessed with this guy. And I'm like, how can you be obsessed, but you're dating? That she's just dating him, babe. Now, whether he's doing right for her by her is another story, but like, they're just dating. So, of course, she's going to FaceTime him, want to talk to him, want to be around him. What you talking about, baby? So she starts the conversation off with that. And then she starts telling Bronwyn about the fact, her brow lady is DMing him. There are more DMs now. I guess they like directly talked about Britt. And he was telling the brow lady that he was not dating Britt. And again, Angie's not only showing the DMs to her husband and then showing them to the America, she's now showing further DMs to Bronwyn and then showing them again to America. So while sitting right behind Brittany. Like, Brittany's literally on her kneecaps. So Brittany, I don't know if she was kind of hearing murmurs. I don't think she was going to clock in, but she does kind of like softly say like, is this about me? And they're like, oh, well, and then Angie kind of flips it. She's like, well, kinda. And she ends up telling her, but then Angie does that thing that we've talked about that her and Bronwyn specifically do. And she's twisted the narrative, and she's like, well, I wouldn't be a friend, and I wouldn't be a woman if I didn't tell you. You weren't telling her. You were talking about her behind her back. She asked you. Now you're telling her. And then when she stormed out crying, Brown was like, well, you did the right thing. You had to tell her. Y'all weren't telling her. You guys were gossiping behind her back. Nobody was telling her anything. Nobody came to her as a woman. Like, where do y'all get this from? This delulu. It's kind of crazy. So while she's crying in the bathroom, Meredith goes to comfort her, which I think is great. But that's when I was wondering, like, how close of a friend is she to Heather? Because they're not even talking. There's even a scene where after she comes back from the bathroom from crying, she's grabbing her food. And I may be thinking too much into it, but Heather walks right past her to go to her seat. Like, she doesn't even check in with her. So I'm just like, are y'all friends or not? Anywho, speaking of friends or not. So they're sitting there, and it seems like Bronwyn and Lisa are not even really chatting. And because they were at different events during the day, Lisa just says, like, hey, Bronwyn, how was the museum? How did it go? And Bronwyn goes, fine. Like a teenager that just left school. Fine. Don't want to talk. And we get a flashback, which I thought was fun. And I guess the girl, can't remember her name, so sorry. I'll have it for next time. That's my homework. I want to know the context behind this, but I guess she came to Bronwyn and she was like, I heard you have been talking about the way that I dress. And Bronwyn, very messily, says, well, if you have any questions about people saying how you dress, just go ask Lisa. And I'm like, well, what type of friend is that? And I thought your bone to pick was with Lisa as it pertained to what Lisa did with the whole Whitney thing. So now how does so-and-so get into it, right? So now you just want to throw Lisa under the bus as it pertains to everything. And I think that that's weird because that's supposed to be your friend. And you're justifying it by saying that you're upset. She said she was furious, I believe was the word that she used, because Lisa said that you were being snarky. Yeah, okay. So while they're having that conversation, she doesn't admit that to Lisa. We just get that in a flashback. But as they're having that conversation, the girl comes up and addresses Lisa herself. She says, well, Lisa, and she got a little jumpy with her. So I want to know more about this girl because her vibe, I liked it. And she's just like, Lisa, like I heard you had a lot to say about how I dress. And Lisa's like, well, no. She tells her the full scenario. I'm not going to repeat it because, I'm kind of a verbatim girl and I just don't really remember what was said. But essentially, Lisa was telling her, like, girl, all I said was a snarky little joke comment about Nordstrom. And it was in response to Bronwyn opened up the conversation about how you dress. We were all having a conversation about it. And I made one single snarky comment. And that's exactly what happened because there's literally just one snarky comment that she said. And she admitted that it was snarky as soon as it came out. So Bronwyn's popping her neck around. And she's just like, well, it's funny that yours can be just a little single snarky joke and a comment. But when I say something, it's a problem. And Lisa's like, but that's all I said to you. But that's all I said to you. Like, all I said was that what you said about Whitney was snarky. So I don't understand why this is an issue. Like, I just admitted that I was being snarky. All I said about you was that you were being snarky. What's the beef? And she's like, like Bronwyn's now like telling her villain origin story. Like, yes, Lisa, you did this to me, and that's why I'm throwing you under the bus now. And you should have stood up for me. And Lisa's like, but girl, like I didn't even know you had left that event with this type of unresolved issue. And I was thinking the same thing because I'm like, you're like very big mad about the fact that Lisa used the word snarky to describe what you said about Whitney when that's exactly what happened. Like, I don't get it. I don't get that expectation. And I think it's funny that so many people, including the audience, hello, I'm talking to you haters, you guys put it on Lisa like she has these high expectations for her friends, and her friends can't do anything, and they have to do what she says. And that's exactly what Bronwyn's doing right now. You should have stuck up for me. You should have shut the conversation down. Why? I agreed that you were being snarky. Why do I need to shut that conversation down? And now you're so mad that you're gonna go around the whole group and tell them what I've been saying about them because I said, well, what you said was snarky. I used the word snarky, and now we're beefing. I find that to be crazy. And I also appreciate being able to see the clip of Lisa saying, well, I did defend you. And Lisa was saying, like, Bronwyn speaks differently. She speaks differently from everybody else. It was not deep. But obviously the haters, high haters, they're going to use that against Lisa. And people are going to like Bronwyn because she has cute fashions and she has a cute house. I agree. But I think that she's a mess. And the fact that she got mad at her friend over something so small that she's going to run to strangers and talk about what her friend did and perpetuate these villain things against her friend on her first season of this show that her friend started. I think that that's weird and I think it's disgusting. And I was living for Bronwyn. Go check my tweets. But now I'm out. Now Heather comes into the conversation and Lisa fills her in on what they're talking about. And Heather, I like how Heather was going toe to toe with her. Like Lisa was keeping it cool, like, girl, like I was defending you as fine. But Heather's like, you're a liar. Like, girl, you were being catty, you were being messy about Whitney, and I was just calling it out. Like, I'm not coming off of that, girl. I'm standing on that. It is what it is. And I hope she keeps her neck, or I hope that Heather keeps her foot on Bronwyn's neck every single episode. Not even every single episode, every single scene of every single episode. And then even just the clip of Heather mimicking Bronwyn just literally, like, I believe just kind of had me on the floor. I think I was just like, rolling around my apartment. My apartment's kind of shaped like an L. I believe that I was rolling like this for about 5 minutes. But it was just very interesting to me to see. And of course, Whitney doesn't know, but I'm just like, oh, you're such an idiot. Because she's watching this go down. She's like, I love that Heather's sticking up for me, but I think she's just being defensive. And she's like, Heather has this big distrust of like new people because of last season, the Monica thing. And she's like, so I think she's displacing this non-trust or distrust, displacing this distrust. That is a lot. She's displacing this distrust now because this is a new person. And I'm just like, no, girl, she's actually spot on. Like, she actually was being snarky. So I wonder now that Whitney has watched it, whether her tune has changed. Again, there's no reason for her to beef with Bronwyn, which is kind of what Heather was saying. Like, Heather's like, girl, nobody came together and was like going to Whitney to say, hey, we didn't talk about you. It was really all Bronwyn. Like, Bronwyn did this, Bronwyn did that. Nobody ever did that. So nobody's wanting them to beef. It's literally just as simple as like, you changed your tune, and that's a character flag. That's weird. Like that you would go to Whitney and say, oh, I was supporting you and I really like you and I want to get to know you. You were reading her. That's weird. And anybody should be able to call that out. So I think it's weird. I think that Bronwyn is a weird piece of girl, and I'm not feeling her. And the fact that Angie is now going to be affiliated with her, and Angie kind of acts like her, don't know. Not feeling it. Was feeling the episode though, and am feeling the season. So I'm interested to see. But I think it's funny that they try this every season, this same formula to perpetuate this weirdness against Lisa, and it's like y'all are all weird. So in trying to expose Lisa for being weird, they always show how just weird they are. So I'm excited to see it unravel. And I will see y'all in the next one.